Hey guys, welcome to the Whole Lot of Jesus podcast. This is a podcast where we talk all about testimonies. Today I have with me my lovely parents. They have been married for almost 27 years. It'll be 27 in August. This is Shane and Jill Hale, and they raised two kids. My brother and I'm 25. My brother is almost 23, and we are now both married, so they are in the adulting parenting phase. And today we're really going to talk about the healthy perspective that you should have as a parent, the healthy mindset, the healthy boundaries, the stages of parenting, and how that looks from a biblical perspective. I'm really excited because I personally think my parents did a really good job at parenting. You know, no parent does everything right, but I think as a whole, they really tried their best and just did a lot of things that I know Briston, my husband, and I want to incorporate when we become a parent this October. And so how are y'all?
Good.
Good.
Doing
Good.
good.
That's good. Also, I do want to say we did an episode before this one talking about their story with overcoming adultery and restoring their marriage. And I highly encourage you to go listen to that. And we're going to do a part 2. The part 1 was kind of about, talking their story, how adultery can happen, and kind of their journey of figuring out that they wanted to restore the marriage and the call of God on their life. And so that does play an effect to parenting more than we probably realize. So please go listen to that episode. And then we're doing a part 2, which is really about healing and the forgiveness process, both as the person who cheated, the one who's forgiving the one who cheated, and then a child forgiving their parent. And that will come out July 1st. So this is kind of in the middle, and I feel like it's a perfect time to talk about parenting in the middle of this process, because for Maverick and I, at least I was a little older. I was a junior in high school. So y'all had parented most of my raising life before that happened. But okay, let's get started. So the first question is, I kind of changed it. So usually I ask the guest, what is the coolest way they've experienced God? But since this is parenting, I want to ask y'all, what is the coolest way y'all have seen God move in your life through parenting thus far? And y'all can both answer, or one person, like, answer how you want to.
Yeah. So, I think the coolest way that I have seen God move as a parent, is the way he's moved through our moves as a family. Each move was for someone in our family. And Carly, we've talked about this as a family before. The obedience of us not sitting still in Arkansas just because we were comfortable led us to Iowa, which then led us to Tennessee, which then led us to Texas. And I think each move had a purpose for one of us. And the coolest thing to see was that wasn't just for dad or for me, it was purpose for our kids. Looking back, just like us moving to Panhandle had a purpose for you, fell in love with track and cross country, which led you to your college career, which then led you to meeting Briston, which now you guys are married. And so, and also same thing with Maverick. When we moved to Colorado City, he met Daly, who now he's married to. And so I think the coolest thing for me as a parent is just to see how God worked through all of those moves, and how I know in advance he knew your spouse and he knew Maverick's spouse, but we had to make the choice of obedience in those moves to move. And so I think that is the coolest, other than when your child comes to salvation, because that is totally cool. Yeah. So, but anyway, Dad, you'll probably say it a lot better than that.
Oh, you said it very eloquently. Honestly, I don't have anything to add to that. I mean, it is, I agree with Mom. It is pretty cool to see the way that, the Lord orchestrates things in your kid's life, as long as we, as parents and then children, are willing to take that, step of faith and go through that door that God opens.
Yeah.
Because He opens many doors, puts us in contact with a whole lot of different people throughout the course of our life, and he puts them in contact with us for a reason. And at the end of the day, it's for us to come up and step out in faith, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we led a easy peasy life through all of those
Yeah.
places that we went, even for you guys. The choices that you ultimately had to make for college, those were not easy choices. I mean, it's not like we're talking about that all of this is easy as parents and easy, but ultimately hindsight, I guess, is what, you say coolest. It's hindsight looking back just to see the way God moved. And a cool thing about this is Daddy and I were talking about this yesterday in the car. We were driving home. And so I went first and said mine, and he said, that's exactly what I was thinking. So I thought that was pretty cool that we kind of were like-minded in this particular answer.
Yeah, that is cool. This morning I was thinking about because we're about to become parents. And so I can't say this from a parent perspective, but I can say this from a kid perspective of like, I feel like there's a temptation for parents to keep their children from facing their fears. Like they want to protect them from facing their fears. And, me and you, Mom, talked about how in my past, like I experienced spiritual warfare and different stuff, and how personally I don't want my kids to experience that because it was very traumatizing. But there was this realization, and I felt like God was like, the goal as a parent isn't to keep your kids from facing their fears, it's to teach them how to face their fears. It's to teach them, because like in life, you're going to experience, like your parent can't keep you from everything, like they're going to experience stuff. And so this morning I was thinking about just the flip of your mindset as you become a parent is like, yes, I need to protect my kids from stuff, but like what y'all said about us moving, being a new kid was so scary, like not knowing anyone and not having any friends and always moving to a new place. I mean, that's a very vulnerable, scary thing for a kid. And yet y'all didn't, in your head, y'all weren't like, well, we don't want our kid to face these things, so we're not going to move. It was like, I feel like the moves helped teach us how to face uncomfortable situations and how to face fears. And honestly, I wouldn't be who I am today. And Dad, you've said this, had we not have moved. Like, I think about when we walk into a room, it's so easy for me to just go up to people that I don't even know and say, hey, what's your name? Like, let's not stand here awkwardly. Like, let's have a conversation, like, but I feel like if we would have lived the same place forever, I don't know if I could say I would have done that, because I never would have been put in that position as a new kid to have to be like, hey, so, what's your
Well,
name?
I mean, I can answer that question. I don't think, you or Maverick, I don't think any of us would be the person that we are today had we not experienced all those different moves. And I mean, we moved, states as you've mentioned. But I'll tell you another part, it's really neat to watch your kids personalities develop and your kids flourish in those type of environments. And it's difficult as a parent, but so rewarding when you step out in faith and trust God with your kids whenever you expose them to those vulnerable moments, like you mentioned, of walking into, a new school, into
Fourth grade.
right.
We were petrified.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat to watch your kids, flourish in that type of environment.
Yeah. That's good. Okay, so this is, I know I sent y'all the questions beforehand, and this question, y'all both kind of were like, this is such a hard question to answer. But what is or was the hardest part of parenting?
Dealing with you two knuckleheads. That
All
was
of
the
it.
hardest, all of it. That was the hardest part. For me, the hardest part of parenting, and it took me a long time to get it. We all have our different personalities, right? So the things that motivate us, that encourage us, that drive us are different. Well, it's the same thing with your kids. So you cannot treat both, or ever how many children you have. If you have more than one child, you cannot treat your kids the same, whether it's encouraging, whether it's disciplining, whether it's motivating, whether it's building them up. I mean, you can't treat them all the same because their personalities are different, and what works for one doesn't work for the other. And I failed for several years, especially when it came to dealing with Maverick, because his personality was not like yours. So I
Yeah.
couldn't respond to him, the same way that I responded to you, because it didn't work for him. So that was extreme. I mean, that was difficult.
Yeah, I think for me, the hardest, when I think of the hardest part of parenting, what comes to mind is letting go as a parent. And I think that's not just letting go at 18 when they leave the house. It's letting go at different stages. If you think about it, even when you have a toddler or one that's learning to walk, a 12-month-old that's learning to walk, as a parent, you have to let go in order for them to walk. You can't always hang on to them or they'll never learn to walk. Same as a 5-year-old or 4-year-old learning to ride a bike. You have to let go. Are they going to fall? Probably. Is it going to hurt? Yes. But at the different stages, letting go. And then you get into your, preteens and teens, and they're learning a little bit of independence, and you're having to just kind of let go. I think that's the hardest part as a parent, because it goes back to what you were saying earlier about fear, and not wanting them to experience fear and pain and all of the things. But as a parent, if you hang on too tight and shelter too much and don't let them become who they are and who God made them to be, I don't think they'll ever be that. So letting go is the hardest. And the only way to do that, I believe, is from the time, and Carly, I've told y'all this, and I tell people this, the time you're born. I know I journaled from when y'all were infants and prayed all through. I mean, I pray for y'all daily now still, but that I would be able to be ready for when y'all left the house. And I think that's a huge part. But letting go as a parent is so difficult. So difficult. So I think that's the hardest part of parenting.
Yeah, those were good answers. I feel like y'all let go very well though. Like when I went off to college, I remember senior year, y'all were ready. Y'all were like, okay, let's scooch.
Well, when you went off to college, we had a lot of things going on in the house.
Y'all did, yes.
Now, when Maverick went off to college, yes, it was time. We were ready for empty nest, and yeah.
Yes, and one thing that is just like so reoccurring in our lives is identity and what you put your identity in. And you're talking about letting go. And I feel like because y'all constantly talk about, with Briston and I, when y'all become parents, like your attention changes. It's no longer what do we want to do, but your kid is like dependent on you for survival. And there's this temptation of putting your identity in them. And so
Sure.
letting go is so hard, because it's like, well, if you put your identity in your kids when they're 18 and they leave, like what's left, and what do you do after that? And how do you move on with life? And one thing too that I recently read, it's Ecclesiastes, and this fits so many categories. It just fits our life. And Solomon talks about seasons. And whenever I feel like our culture does such a bad job at explaining that, because when you're 18, you have to pick a major and that's going to determine the rest of your life. Well, no. I mean, I don't know if many 18-year-olds thought that, but personally I did. I thought, okay, I have to choose this major and that's going to be the job I'm going to have. And, but it's like, not necessarily, like you're called to seasons. Like there's different, like moving. We moved, there were seasons. And then being a mom, that's a season. Like again, culture I feel like is like, okay, if you're a woman, you have to choose a career or you have to choose being a mother. Like you can't do both. Or if you do both, like y'all get what I'm saying. And it's like, no, like there could be a season of you pursuing a career, but then there could also be a season of you being a mom. And like if it's both, marriage, like unless both spouses die at the same time, marriage is a season. And like raising kids is a season. Like he just talks about these seasons and how everything is a season. And so like you constantly have to have an open hand in life. I said this at one of our life groups in Magnolia when we lived there. They were so funny because I was like the older I get, and they're like, you're not even that old. but because it was all ages. There was like Miss Mandy's dad, and then we had people y'all's age, and then Anna and Brody and us. They're like, it was all ages. But one of the things I said was like, the older I get and the more responsibility that God gives me, the more tempting it is to close my hand. Like when I became a Christian and I was in high school, well, letting go and surrendering to God and giving my all honestly wasn't that big of a deal, because all I had to give him was like, I don't know. You don't have that much responsibility in high school.
Right.
So you give him maybe your thoughts or the clothes you wear or the friends you hang out with. But then you graduate and you go to college and it's like, okay, well now I got to give you my major. Okay, then I get married. Now I got to give you my husband. Okay, now I'm having a kid. Now I got to give you my kid. Like it's like this constant thing of like what you're saying, letting go. And it's hard and it's not easy. And yeah, as humans, I feel like we like control and we want to be in control. And I don't know, the honest truth is we aren't. Go ahead.
I know. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you're talking about control. And another thing is, Daddy was talking about personalities. We have to keep in mind we're not raising a mini me. Like we couldn't raise you and Maverick to be just like us, because God didn't make y'all just like us. God has made you very unique. I love, we went and saw Tim Tebow, and his big thing is not one in a million, but one of one. And I love that, because every child that is born is one of one. It's born for a purpose. So we couldn't raise y'all to be just like us.
Yeah.
And so that's where letting go too comes in, and that control of trying to control you to do X, Y, and Z for my benefit, you know, as a parent. That's a big thing, parents living through their children, living their lives through their kids. But no, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. There's this last thing, and then we'll go to the next question. I forget his name, but he started Turning Point USA. He's very well known. He speaks super blunt. He's very conservative, talks a lot about Christian conservative topics, and goes to college campuses and addresses a lot of us young people about do y'all know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. But he is like very against college because of the debt and the things behind it. I'm not going to go into all the details, but things behind college motivation. And there was this kid and he was like, hey, I'm going to college next year, yada, yada, yada. And the guy said, I want you to ask your parents, do they desire more for you to be a good person, or do they desire more for you to go to college? Because he said that's going to say a lot about their motivation and where they're putting their identity in you. Like if they care more about you being a good person, well, then college might not be the best thing for you. Because honestly, at college, it's a lot of bad behaviors. Like I will say it's good if God calls you there, but just be prayerful about that because, he talked about sex and partying and drugs and just a lot of the stuff that goes on at college. That's like glorified. And what you're saying about living through your kids, and we're going to get into this, but I feel like y'all did such a good job when I came to y'all about a situation, and like y'all could have handled it so different than how y'all handled it. And I honestly, looking back, I'm really surprised. I don't want to say surprised as in a bad way, but it's like, wow, y'all actually didn't put y'all's identity, like the fact that I didn't know what I was doing next and y'all were like, it's okay, and we had graduation, and it just showed a lot about your character and how as parents you were letting go, and you were letting me make my own decisions. And I mean, Dad, you encouraged me to go in a direction, but it wasn't like, oh, you have to do this because this is going to affect me. Like there was that. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hey guys, we're going to take a short break so that I can tell y'all about a couple of products that are already out or soon to be coming out. The first one is our Leaning In 2024 Planner and Devotional. It's the middle of the year, so I highly encourage you to wait and get the 2025 one that is coming out this November. It will be available for the 2025 year. Again, it is a planner and devotional, so it comes with monthly devotionals and then a full planner inside of it. It also has sermon notes for you to take notes. And my favorite part about this is it has scripture declarations in the back that has to do with topics that you might be struggling with, like mental health or addictions or mindsets or anything like that. And it has a list of scriptures to help you declare over yourself to combat those struggles. This devotional and planner is really a guide and a tool to help you grow in your faith. We go over topics like worship, fasting, prayer, consecration, trusting in the Lord, really key things that you're needing in order to be successful in the Christian walk. So be looking out for the new edition that's coming out. We are rebranding it under our Stewards of Faith organization. So we're going to get a new cover and have a new look, but everything inside is going to be the same, and it will be available on Amazon in November. So be looking out for that. The second product that I want to share with y'all is our Creation Devotional, which is a 90-day devotional through the book of Genesis. If you have never read the whole book of Genesis, I really encourage you to get this devotional. If you struggle with reading the word daily and you want to learn more about the word, this is a great tool and resource because we go over pretty much everything that happens in Genesis. We don't go verse by verse, but we do go over the stories, all the stories that are in Genesis, to really help you understand God's creation, how he created the world. We go over key topics that our culture is really bashing, and rebukes whenever it comes to God's nature and authority. And so I highly encourage y'all to get this. It is also available on Amazon. And our second one, which is Deliverance, which is a 90-day devotional over the book of Exodus, also comes out in December. So if you want to grab this, go through it before the second book comes out. This is a part of our Bible Defo collection. We are actually going to go through the entire Bible and make devotionals based on the books of the Bible. I'm really excited about this because the mission is really just to teach you more about the Word, what's in the Word, and also help you ignite a spark of love for Scripture. So again, this is available on Amazon. You can get it today, and be looking out for our next one, which is called Deliverance, that goes through the book of Exodus. that comes out in December. Okay, so we looked up the name and it's Charlie Kirk, right? I pronounced
Yes,
that right.
Charlie
Okay,
Kirk.
great. So you can look him up. He's very blunt. I will say that. And he even admits that. But okay, so the next question is describe the stages of parenting. And I'll preference that one of our pastors at our church and his wife, they did a great message probably a month ago about parenting. And they talked about how when you have an infant to before they're teenagers, how it's a lot of training and teaching them what not to do. And they don't really have a lot of independence. I mean, they're reliant on you for food and shelter. They can't do a lot of things by themselves. So you're very hands-on. It's a very hands-on approach. But then they talked about how when they become adolescents, how it's kind of like it's more hands-off and you're still guiding them, but it's not. It's okay. No, it's okay. It's not from a hands-on approach. It's more so like them coming to you or you using what scripture says, the rod, which a lot of church people use as discipline, and it is, but the context of the scripture is with the sheep, it's more so guiding them in the right direction and telling them, this is the way to go, don't go that way. And it's for protection. It's to keep them from the wolves and the lions and the bears who wanted to eat the sheep. And so in that context, as adolescents, you're more so doing that. You're more so trying to guide them in their right direction. And then there's adult parenting. And they talked about, and even y'all have talked about, that is a lot harder than you would think because your kids are grown, they're adults. And so you, for 18 years, really had a say on what they did and all the stuff. And now they're on their own. And it's like, you probably want to say some things and you probably want to, put an input and put your opinion in your suggestion, but it's really like releasing them. And I feel like it's more of a friend mentor relationship than it is an actual like parent-child relationship. Y'all are still our parents, but I do feel like the relationship, at least for us, has really shifted. Y'all aren't telling me like, no, you can't do this. And y'all like, it's more so, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, and I think it's, extremely important. And of course, you don't realize this until you're in the stage that Mom and I are in with you and Maverick, obviously. But if you raise your kids and create an environment, from the time that they're an infant till they graduate, till they get married and they get on their own, you want to create that environment to where they want to come back and ask you questions or want to come back and get advice. If you create an environment to where you're trying to smother them and dictate and demand everything that they do, then when the opportunity for you to really, step in and help guide, them through adult life, they're not going to come, knocking on your door saying, hey, Dad, this is what I've got. Here's my options. What do you think?
Yeah. I think y'all did very well at one of my favorite things was y'all always said, if you're ever in a situation, so like you go to a party and you drink or whatever the case may be, don't be afraid to call us. And y'all said, the next day, there's probably going to be some discipline, but for that night, we're not going to bring it up. We're not going to discuss it. We're not going to, we'll just pick you up, bring you home. And I feel like y'all also did a really good job at if we had any questions about like sex or relationships or these topics, the door was always open and we weren't put down for asking questions. Like I remember, Mom, when I came to you and told you that I lost my virginity, and your response was, I feel like, so good because you did not just, I'd say the word discriminate if you have a better word, but you didn't condemn me for having those desires. Like you acknowledged, because you basically said, well, Carly, I would rather you do that than do drugs, which is so funny at the time. I'm like, what? But looking back, it's like you said, well, you're human. And you talked about how, like, that's a natural human tendency. Like, God created sex. And I also love how sex was always a conversation. It wasn't, I mean, y'all weren't like graphic or inappropriate, but like it was talked about. It wasn't like this hush hush thing of, no, this is a bad thing. And, I mean, like, I feel like y'all did a good job of like, this is biblical, it's for marriage. And even in our conversation of when I told you I lost my virginity, you saying this is a human desire, I felt like was saying, Carly, it's okay that you felt that way. Like, I'm having compassion for you feeling that way. And then you moved into, should you have probably done that? No. But it was like, I don't know. I didn't feel condemned for what I did. I felt like kind of Jesus at the well when he meets the woman. And the first thing he doesn't like, he eventually points out her sin, but that's not the first thing he points out. Like, he meets her where she's at and he has compassion for her. And then the conversation shifts. And I just felt like the door was always open. And I feel like it created space for us to come to y'all. And I guess with my personality, I can't talk for Maverick, but like it was easy for me to come to y'all and confess some things. Did I confess everything? No. But like some things
What did you confess?
Yeah.
Now's the time. So I confess it.
No, but like it was easier to come to y'all because I felt like if I came to y'all would actually listen, and it wasn't like what you were saying. It wasn't like pointing a finger. I mean, because y'all even said we were teenagers once, like we were y'all's age once. So I don't know if you want to add anything.
I just want to say, Daddy's right. We tried to always keep conversations open. I mean, that I would always, I think, tell y'all, I would rather you come to us than to your friends or anywhere else. So, especially, well, with you too, but going back to Maverick and locker room talk, I mean, you have to be open with your kids about,
If you don't teach them, somebody's
that's
going
exactly
to.
right. Thank you.
If you don't teach them, somebody's going to.
Yes.
So, I would rather teach them, inform them in a safe environment versus somebody else.
Yeah.
Because they're going to teach them. They're going to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Okay, y'all ready to go on to the next one?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, what are healthy boundaries and mindsets parents should establish? And you can talk about like parents raising kids, and then does it transition when your kids become adults? The boundaries or the mindsets, like.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll start off and, we kind of discussed this a little bit in our last topic. You have to create an environment that your kids feel comfortable coming to you with an issue that they're having, bad choices that they made, knowing that there's going to be consequences, but not scared of the initial reaction they're going to get. Because depending on how you react when your child brings something to you, is going to determine, are they going to continue to bring things to you, or will they continue to hide them? And I think that's crucial. You have to establish an environment to where they feel safe, knowing there's consequences. It's not that they're going to get a pass. They know there's consequences, but they feel safe in coming to you with the bad choices that they made, in spite
Go ahead.
of the consequences that they're going to face.
And I think being raised in church helped, because I think a lot of the consequences we understood was from a biblical basis. At least like when I came to you about losing my virginity, I already knew that that was wrong. So it wasn't like you giving me consequences was based on y'all's logic of what's right and wrong. It's like I already knew, okay, in God's eyes, this is wrong. And so whatever my parents decide is not based on their opinion, but like based on God's. So I do think that helps. I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it absolutely helps.
And
Yeah.
also, as far as boundaries, mindsets, you know, I always told you that I wasn't your friend, that we
Yeah.
could be friends later. So, you know, you have the environment where you can come and talk to us and tell us anything, but you're not coming to us as a friend relationship. We
Yeah.
are your parents. We are, you know, so, like I always told you, we can be friends later. I feel like we're friends now. But at that point, you know, when you all were living at home, we were not friends. That wasn't my job. That's not daddy's job. You know, our
Yeah.
job is to be your parent first, friends later.
Yeah, and to give a little context, I think I was in high school and I had watched some of the girls in the high school. Their parent relationship was like a friend relationship. They were like best friends. And one day, I think I went to you, Mom, and was like, Mom, I forget how I worded it, but I basically was like, why can't you be more of my friend or something? Like, why can't we be more friends? Or, you know, and you said, well, honey, I'm your mom first and I can be your friend later. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you did that because I feel like it created honor. We didn't, you know, one of the commandments is honor your parents. And when a friend relationship is like you're on the same level, but a parent relationship is like you have authority over your kids. So it's like a respect for your parents. And, you know, we did not the best at, I look back and I'm like, I really wish I would have honored y'all better than I did. But maybe it's hindsight. Maybe it's always hindsight. But, yeah, just there's a blessing in honoring those above you in position above you, which I feel like as a culture and a young generation, we're losing that. Like we don't want to honor our boss or we don't want to honor our parents or whatever it is. We don't even want to honor our coaches. That was a huge thing in college athletics. But anyways, so yeah, I'm glad you said that because that established like a boundary of, no, I'm your mom, you're the child. And I feel like it created a space of like, you can't disrespect me. Like you can't overstep me, even if you try, because I tried. Like kids are gonna try, you know.
They're gonna try. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then so one of the things I want to bring up is actually in the creation devotional, and this is really shocking, and I feel like this is good boundary wise. And I was actually really shocked that this just was highlighted. I mean, it's so interesting. And so it's on day 40, and I'll show y'all but it says the verses are arise, and Abraham is talking to Isaac. So Abraham's the dad and he is talking to his son Isaac. And he says, arise, go to, I can't pronounce this place, but go to this P place. Go to this place, to the house of Bethel, your mother's father. So your grandfather. Yeah, thanks, Mom. And take as your wife from there one of the daughters of Laban. Is that how you pronounce his name? Laban. Your mother's brother, so your uncle. God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may become a company of peoples. May he give the blessing of Abraham to you and to your offspring. Oh, wait, maybe I'm sorry, guys. This is Isaac talking to his son Jacob. So this is Isaac the dad. Abraham was
Grandfather.
dad to Isaac.
Yeah.
Isaac had Jacob. So Isaac's talking to Jacob. Sorry. So he says, and Abraham was given a promise. So Isaac's just relaying the promise that he was given from his father Isaac, or from his father Abraham. I hope I'm not confusing y'all. Okay, anyway. May he give the blessing of Abraham to you and to your offspring, that you may take possession of the land that God gave to Abraham. That's Genesis 28, 2-4. And I just want to read you this part. I said, Isaac gives Jacob the blessing his father Abraham gave him when he was ready to take a wife. And when God creates man and woman, he speaks that the man should leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. That's Genesis 2:24. We see in the storyline that Abraham spoke this truth to Isaac, and now Isaac is speaking it over his son Jacob, reminding him of the promise God spoke to Abraham. As I prepared for marriage a couple years ago, I began to notice the emotional bond mothers have to their sons. It seems in our culture that the concept of a son leaving his father and mother and clinging to his wife is not as prevalent as it was in biblical times. This is so interesting. Jacob was Rebekah's favorite. So Rebekah was Isaac's wife who had Jacob, and Jacob was the favorite. And yet you never see her, his mother, tell her son who to marry or what to do. Instead, the advice and the blessing came from his father, Isaac. This can be hard to swallow for us women. What do you mean I can't suggest things? It's not necessarily that we can't suggest things, but as I look at scripture, I wonder if Rebekah understood that once her son took a wife, she, his mother, would no longer be the helper she had been throughout his childhood. Perhaps in order for him to become the leader in his family, he needed to step away from listening to his mother's voice and make his own decision. And I know that that's really blunt for me to say, and I'm not a mom yet, but I do feel like in culture, I mean, like, it's just so prevalent that mothers are so, and maybe mom, maybe you can speak to it more because I've just seen it. I haven't experienced it myself, but from being a wife, it's like, I mean, it doesn't say a daughter shall leave her, and there is a leaving for us women too when we do get married. But I don't know. Do y'all want to speak into that? It popped out so much that Rebekah wasn't the one to tell Isaac or to tell Jacob, hey, this should be your wife. Hey, this, like, Isaac was given the promise, and he was a man, and he told Jacob like what to do. And Rebekah respected that. Like, and I feel like in a culture, us women like to overstep, and we want to be the ones to, like, does that make sense?
It does. For moms and sons, there is a bond there for a mom and a son. But and Maverick's not here to speak, of course, but I always told Maverick, I'm his biggest cheerleader until he takes a wife. And then she becomes his biggest cheerleader, because as a mom, you have to let go. When both kids get married, but we're talking about a mom and a son, you have to let go his wife becomes his number one, whereas mom is number one, his number one female, until he gets married. But it's super important, for mom and for son and his bride, that is the way that it is, that once a son takes a wife, that, I'm no longer woman number one. The wife is woman number one. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah. And I should have saved it, but there was a post on social media that talked about that, what you're saying, of like, if the son is still going to his mom when he's married, there's a issue. It was talking about when he becomes married, it was just highlighting that relationship of, like, there has to be a transition in your helper, if you will,
Yes,
and who helps you.
exactly right.
And you just can't always go to your mom, and how there has to be like a transition in that.
Yeah.
That's also the responsibility of the parent too, to let that go. I mean, that's where the parent needs to step in also.
Yeah.
I mean, it's both people. So as parents, if you're sensing that or seeing that that's an issue, you need to have a conversation with your mother, and say, hey,
Are you accusing?
No. Leave me alone. The umbilical cord is cut.
To be cut. On both, yeah. I mean, it's, that is so true. That you have to, again, you have to let go as a parent. That's that letting go, especially when your kids get married. You know, in our culture, in Western culture, families are huge. I mean, when we say family, we're talking, usually not talking about our family unit. We're talking about, our mom and dad and our sisters and brothers and our nieces and nephews. And, that's family. Well, true, we're all family, but right now, Daddy and I are a family. You and Briston and Peanut, baby Rains, are gonna be a family, and Maverick and Daly are their family. We're like 3 different families,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
Like there's a difference there. We're 3 different families. Now we're all family,
yeah.
but the priorities shift. There's a change. There's a transition, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like scripture talks a lot about that. Like I think it was Jacob. It was one of them. He goes and gets, yes, it was Jacob. He goes and gets his wife, and he stays with his father-in-law for years. Like serves him for 14 years, but then I think serves him more than that. And finally God is like, "Hey, like you got to do what I'm calling you to do. Like you got to go where I'm calling you to go." And the father-in-law had such a hard time. Like when you read the story, he did not want Jacob to leave with his grandkids and his daughters. Like he did not want them to leave. And so you see that even in scripture of like you have to be willing to. And I feel like Briston and I moving to a place where we don't have any family here has really, like, I say helped our marriage, but it's brought us closer together because like one day our car broke down on we were like thankfully we were only a few blocks away from our apartment, but we're in this city. There's no sidewalks. There's like no public transportation except for Uber. Our car breaks down. We know nobody. So like we have nobody to call, and we got to get a tow truck, and we walked like 4 or 5 blocks back to our apartment, and it was hilarious because it was like we're gonna remember that story forever. Like we're walking to our apartment because our car broke down. And anyway, so that was just like going to a place where you don't have family. It makes you depend more on one another and less on people that are there. So y'all did a good job at this next question. Describe how y'all worked as a married unit when it came to answering questions, making decisions, and disciplining us. And as your kid, I'm really proud of how y'all handled this because from what I remember, y'all always were on the same page. Like y'all always, I don't ever remember a time of y'all not being on the same page when it came to those 3 topics.
Yeah, so mom and I, if one of you, you or Maverick came and asked us, "Hey, can I do something?" Okay. And you came and asked me, the first question I would ask was, "Have you asked your mother?" And if the answer was no, I haven't asked mom, and I didn't think, it was that big a deal. And I would say, "Yes, you can do it." Well, your mother would support me in that. Okay. But if the response was, "Yes, I asked mom," and the answer, "Okay, well, what did she say?" Well, she said no, then I'm going to support the decision that she made. Or if the answer was, "Well, she didn't care, it's up to you. She told me to come ask you." We supported each other's decision, okay? But we also wanted to make sure that they weren't asked and first, and you didn't like the answer you got, so you came to dad to see if you could get a different answer and then be able to go do it.
Yes, it was so funny. There would be times where we'd go ask one parent and they'd say, "I don't care, just go ask your dad or whatever." And we'd go ask your dad and he'd say, "Go ask your mom." And we'd be like, "We just did, and they said to come ask you."
And you know, we always wanted to make sure that we were unified. There were times that I allowed y'all to do stuff that she didn't necessarily agree with, and vice versa. But those conversations we had behind closed doors, y'all went ahead and did it, okay? But those conversations we had behind closed doors, and we had that discussion. It was never discussed, in front of y'all. I
Yeah.
mean, there were times both of us made decisions the other one didn't agree with, but nobody knew about it because we had those discussions, behind closed doors.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the unit, like, because it's so tempting. I don't know if it's just early on in marriage, but like it's so tempting to, what's the word I'm looking for? Like I feel like Satan does such a good job at trying to break the married unit and trying to like make your spouse the bad guy. And like
Yeah, because
spouse is the bad guy.
if he can destroy the marriage, that's a generational impact. It affects generations. Of
Yeah.
course, that's his number one motive is to destroy the family. If you destroy the marriage, you destroy the family.
And these are conversations that young marrieds need to have. What are we gonna, we need to be a unit once we start having kids. I mean, you don't need to not have the conversations about how you're going to discipline or how you're going to, once you've already had kids. I mean, you're kind of, then you're just reacting to what's happening around you. These are crucial conversations to have as young married couples, just to make sure that, yeah, you are a unit.
And, when it came to like big thing, I would consider big things, like sleepovers. If you want to have a bunch of people sleep over, Maverick, or there was a sleepover that you were invited to, or Maverick, we would all, whether you came and asked me or whether, mom was asked, we always asked each other before we
Gave an answer.
said, yes, you could.
Yeah.
We always
that's
did.
it.
We always did that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So you kind of answered this, and it's funny because y'all in our last episode, y'all talked about non-negotiables, which were y'all created those after the affair, but how I've had so many people comment and say, that's a great idea. And so even Briston and I, after listening to that, we've like talked about, okay, I want this to be a non-negotiable. I want this to be a non-negotiable. Like I want this to be, and so creating and non-negotiables, how would y'all, those are just basically rules that you set for your marriage that you're kind of like, this is what we're going to live by. And that could be, we always sleep in the same bed when we can't, when we're home and not, on a work trip or whatever. We never take our wedding rings off. I know, Briston and I have talked about like making decisions together and compromising, like figuring out a compromise. If one person wants to do one thing and another person wants to do another thing, like learning how to take from both sides and like make a sandwich and like compromise that. What else? I don't know. There's just things. I remember I talked about in one of the Bible boot camp episodes how, or maybe it was something, how it's so tempting to be independent in marriage, like, but biblically that's not, like, you become one flesh. So biblically, to be independent is to be selfish and not the biblical way to do marriage, and how you have to like constantly break that, probably even for parenting too. Because like though you said, Dad, there were times where you didn't agree but Mom did, so you surrendered your wants for what she said and vice versa. And yeah, just like breaking that independent mindset of, well, I want to do this, so yada yada yada. And were there, like, talk about, were there things that y'all saw growing up that y'all were like, yes, I want to do this, okay, no, I do not want to do this. From your
Watching.
Hang on, though. Hang on.
no, you don't have to go like into specific detail, but I know for even Briston and I, there's things where we're like, you have to point it out. Cause like I've even told y'all this. I feel like kids, it's so much learned behavior. Like the way your kid acts or responds to situations or mindsets or just behavior is so much learned from your parent, like how your parent responds, what they think is right, what they think is wrong. Like you might not agree with everything with your parent, but a lot of the stuff you do is probably based on how you were raised. And it's like when you have even, I mean, because y'all were middle class, his parents were middle class, even though we were raised in the same class in the South for the majority of our lives, like there are very different family dynamics. So us coming together and about to be parents, it's like you have to point it out and you have to say, okay, like this is, I like this, like I want to incorporate this in our marriage and in our.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
The
There you go. There we go. Oh,
it's not the was it glitching out or did it just all of a
No,
sudden?
no, it just
It
stopped.
just gave, it just went out. Yeah.
Sorry. Just testing the mic. All right, let's maybe that was Holy Spirit saying.
I need to do that.
All right, so where were we?
Sometimes I'm too open and honest. Can you hear me now?
Yes. All right, where were we?
Anyways, just family dynamics and taking what you want and we talked about this, not going on cruise control through marriage and through parenting and actually saying like I mean y'all know this, like I'm very big about goals, and this year God has really taught me that setting goals is really about setting habits and doing what you want to do over and over again in order to reach the goal. And I feel like as a society, we don't set enough goals, like even in the church. Like, do we set goals for our marriage? Do we set goals as parents? Like, do we set goals even for ourselves of where we want to be in Christ? And you can't grow if you don't have a goal. I mean, that's pretty obvious in sports. You have a goal and I don't know. So like in parenting, like what are the goals? What kind of parent do you want to be? And which life is busy, so you probably get distracted and but okay. Y'all went over that.
Well, hang on, back to you started
Question.
out with our parents and
Oh yeah.
just kind of left.
Sorry. I just don't want to take too much of y'all's time. Like, yeah, were there things in y'all's relationship or in y'all's growing up that y'all were like, okay, I want to do this, and then no, I don't want to do this? And again, you don't have to go into specific detail of what it was, but just yes, no, why, things like that.
I think in it, yes, both positive and negative. I mean, I think both sets of our parents are set great examples. But I think everyone looks at, in hindsight, at how you were parented and you say, okay, yes, I want to incorporate this, but no, I don't want to incorporate this part.
So yeah, and yes, but this is why I think I don't think it's the way we were raised. I mean, I think Jill and I have a unique situation, and I think you and Maverick a unique situation. No, I mean, seriously now,
Like-
look at this. Look at this.
Okay.
Both of our parents have been married over 50 years.
Yes.
Both of them.
Yes.
Both of us grew up in a wonderful, loving home. Both of us did. Right now, today, your Mimi and Papa, your Mammy and Pappy could go on vacation together
Yes.
with this little knucklehead that you're about to have and get along.
Yeah.
Of all your friends, have you known any of your friends that had a set of grandparents, grandparents on both sides that had a relationship like that?
Not that I know of.
I've never seen it other than this. So it's unfair for us, I think, to comment on a lot of it because it's unique.
Yeah.
But yes, growing up, I mean, I had wonderful parents. Jill, your mom has wonderful parents. We had great upbringings. Are there things we liked and didn't like? Are there things we did different? Yes, but I think it's the personality.
Yeah.
Our personalities are not like theirs. Mine and Jill's personalities are not like Sandra and Dwayne's or, Jan and Larry's. As a married couple, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
There are things that we pulled from our upbringing, and there are things that we said we're going to do a little different. But I think it's a personality. I think the foundation on how you need to raise your child or children and bring them up with with a solid foundation. We had the solid foundation as we grew up. That was there. The meat of it was there. Now, we may have changed some of the, sides here and there
Yeah.
to make our main course better than what we had, but I think it's just a personality. I mean, our personalities, are different.
Okay, so the last announcement that I have for this episode is our new mentorship program that is opening up. Enrollment is opened now. It is through our new organization called Stewards of Faith. If you are struggling or want to grow in your faith or in your finances this summer, this is a great opportunity for you. We provide 2 coaching areas, faith and finance. And you pick one, you can do both, or you can pick one. It is a faith-based community. So this is a community of believers. We will have monthly, once a month sessions where all of us will be together, probably on Zoom, just talking about, what we're growing in, our goals, our plans, encouraging one another, different things like that. And then once a week, you'll have a one-on-one call with me. And we will go through your triggers. What are you struggling with? I'll have kind of mentorship, discipleship guides to help you grow in these 2 areas. You're going to receive accountability and encouragement. We're going to set effective goals. We're going to make a plan for those goals in growing your faith. Where do you want to be at the end of the summer with your faith or with your finances? It is only $15 a month. Again, this is a great opportunity. So if you would like more information, go to www.carlyrains.com/stewards of faith. You can find out more information about the program and you can also enroll there. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I didn't realize how blessed we were until I went to college. And
I
I
know.
realized how for y'all to work it out, for our grandparents to be married over 50 years, both sets, for them to both be very active in our lives, despite living hours away, despite living across
Continents away.
across the country or across the world. They always were very a part of our lives, and I actually want to do an episode with both of them together, and that's unique. Seeing them be able to be in the same room and laugh and Mammy and Pappy invite Mimi and Papa to their 50th celebration. I think unintentionally I grew like from growing up like that, I just assumed, oh, this is how in-laws are. Like this is how and
No, it's not. I'm telling you.
and so I just learned like, no, this is not how every family married relationship is.
No, we are so fortunate. God has blessed us. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
We are so blessed.
And like I know it's in the Old Testament, but it talks about like generational blessings and generational curses. And it
Mhm.
talks about how like that really does play an effect in your family, what you're saying of like there are blessings and then there are things that will affect your generations
Yeah.
forever. So that's a big part of parenting. Um okay, so what was the hardest part about transitioning from raising kids to adult parenting?
Kicked him out.
Nothing. We just kicked them out.
Nothing.
Nothing more.
Empty nest time now.
Okay. Oh wait. So y'all really do have an answer, or y'all?
No,
No. Go ahead.
we were supposed to like fist bump at this point. Remember when we said kick them out? Yeah. The hardest part.
Wait, from you're talking about adulting or just when they left the house and we become empty nesters?
I think both.
Okay, so like, I think the hardest transition for me was, and I think it was for your mama as well. We were always so active with you kids and everything, all these sports and everything. Active, active, active. I mean, we're going to football and basketball and baseball and track and
Good.
cheerleading and dance. And I mean, you go back to when you were, in grade school, flag football and soccer and on and on and on and on. And then it just stopped. Like there was no slow down. It stopped. Over with. On a Friday night, Mom and I are sitting here and what's going on? We should be at a football game or something. What's going on here? I think that was a hard.
That is hard.
That's hard because you're chasing your kids everywhere, watching them compete, all this and then it just ends.
And I think we were ready as far as excited about that to be just us. I can't imagine people that aren't ready and then have that stop, I mean, because it was hard for us and we were looking forward to it. But yeah, it gets quiet. I mean, because it
Stops.
just stops.
Now you don't know what to do.
Oh, we figured it out.
Well,
It didn't take long. And then your parenting kind of does the same thing. You go from being a parent where you're instructing to just being an advisor.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not instructing anymore. We're sitting back and watching you guys find yourselves, we're advisors for when you come and to ask questions. And then that's when we jump in. We don't get to say, hey, I see you doing this. Maybe you ought to do that. That part's done. Even though Dad sometimes says, Mom, you can't do that anymore.
No, I really like that. At least y'all don't do this in front of us where you don't, I know, Mom, you're a fixer, but you wait until we come to y'all. Like, it's not like what you're saying. It's not like you see us doing something and then you just like input, and it's very frustrating, like having that done to you, because it's like, I don't know. Again, going back to the teaching your kids how to face their fears instead of keeping them from facing them.
And speaking on this, with us becoming new grandparents, this will be difficult for me again, because this is y'all's first baby, not to jump in and just try to help at every, you know what I mean? Like I'm I know it's going to be hard for me. I know I'm going to have to like, whoop, nope, not my place. Let them, figure it out. So yeah.
So what helped y'all let go as we graduated high school and started living on our own? Like, was it, I know, Mom, you talked about prayer. You talked about journaling, which I
Oh,
think is
yes.
a big part of helping let go. Dad, was it hard for you? Was it not hard for you? Like,
Well, yeah,
well,
I mean, yeah,
actually,
it was.
it was, because I remember coming home one break and we talked about this. You go from talking to your kids every day to it might be once a week. It might be, I mean, like they're living their life. So you might not necessarily talk every day. And I remember you talking about how like you had to learn like Christ has to fulfill that spot that your kids once had of talking every day.
Right.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
Yeah.
And it is extremely difficult, but I mean, you just have to trust that God's got it. And God's, watching over and God's protecting.
Yeah. So, that was the last question I had, but I wanted to mention the graduation story because I feel like y'all did such a good job at it. And so basically, senior year of high school, you decide where your future plans are going to be. And we had y'all had told me, I think it was before I started senior year, I was in charge of paying for school. And I'm sure y'all thought because of grades and everything, I was just going to get completely paid for. And so we started looking at schools. We toured multiple schools, and I wanted to go to Texas Tech University, which is a D1, super expensive school. And so that was the only school that I applied to officially and got admitted. And then we got the tuition cost, how much it was going to cost per year. And so I started applying for scholarships that, senior fall of senior year, all the way through spring. And by March of senior year, there was no money. Like I had applied for over 100. I remember having an Excel sheet of every scholarship I applied for, and there were so many classmates getting scholarships left and right and having no issues getting money for where they were going to go to school. And it was during March where I also want to preference this, that my junior year of high school, our school offered the Dave Ramsey high school curriculum for personal finance. And one of his pillars is to get college paid for completely, no debt. And you can look this up in scripture too, because God has a saying about what he thinks of debt. And it's the opposite of our culture. And so early on, I had a prayer wall and I wrote to get school paid for because I wanted school paid for. There's just so many benefits of getting your school paid for because of, that's a whole nother conversation. But there's so many benefits. So prayed for school to be paid for. Well, March, there was no money. And like we didn't have savings. I babysat in high school. So, and I spent all my money. Like I didn't save it, right? And I don't even think I opened a bank account until like senior year or something. I mean, it was and so it was during that time that I felt like God is so cool, because in February of that year, I got diagnosed with narcolepsy. And all throughout senior year, there was this desire to work out every day. There was this desire to eat healthy. Like I remember imagining on Texas Tech's campus, I'm gonna run through the campus. I'm gonna eat healthy. I'm gonna eat these clean foods. I'm not gonna eat these processed foods. Like there was and I feel like God was really preparing me for what he was about to have me step into. And February, I get diagnosed. And then we find out in March, I have to go on this super strict diet because of the medication. I can't have any salt, no fast foods, no processed stuff. Everything pretty much has to be homemade. So there was the healthy food desire. And then during that month, it was like I just kept feeling this urge to unenroll from the one school I enrolled in. And I remember coming to y'all in April. So this was April now. Coming to y'all in April. It was like a month from graduation. And how our graduation worked was they didn't just say your name. They said your future plans. They said how much scholarship money you got, where you were going. I mean, they like painted the picture, right? They bragged on you. And all I could think about was, I'm about to walk on stage and they're about to say, Carley Hale, graduated, future plans undecided. Like, seriously. And people think, you had all year to decide your future plans. What do you mean undecided, you know? But I came to y'all and was like, hey, I really feel like I need to unenroll. And I loved y'all's response because y'all did not react. Y'all kind of were like, I remember y'all asking, well, what are you going to do? And I remember being like, I don't know. Y'all kind of were like, okay, well, if this is what you feel like God's telling you to do, then you can do it. And I loved that because it was like you were allowing me to make a decision. Like that was the first time I felt like I made an adult decision, you know? And so I unenroll and there were like, what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Well, we're like panicking. I'm panicking. We're like looking up. I mean, Mom, I remember you looking up these GAP programs. Yeah, like mission trips. Like, what can you do?
That was my fix it, kicking in.
Yes. We're like, okay, well, there's this organization. You can go to different countries. You can study abroad. I remember looking up Bible schools and be like, well, maybe I can go to a Bible school. Way too expensive. There were so many different things. And then this was prophesied. Y'all remember this was prophesied by this prophet from South Africa who came to our church my sophomore year of high school and literally told me I was going to go into college athletics. And I laughed at that man, thinking that man was crazy. No joke. And coach service calls like 2 weeks before graduation. Thank you. He calls 2 weeks before graduation and literally is like, hey, I found you on athletic.net, you high jump. Would you be interested in coming to the one school we joked about? Like, we joked about this school. I wish I have to write a book about this because this is the story is just so hilarious. God has a sense of humor. But this is like the joke school because Mom went there. We had so many family members go to this school. So growing up, this was the school that y'all were like, Carley, you could always go to SAU. I'm like, no, I am not going to SAU. Like, what? SAU? And this is the coach from that school. And he called about high jump. And I remember thinking in my head, what does this have to do with getting school paid for? This is such a distraction. Like, why would I ever do this? Like, why would I ever do this? And hang on. And then he called again. He called again, found out, oh, she not only high jumped, she ran cross country. And he's like, do you want to run cross country in college? In college. Cross country in college? All I was thinking of, I'm going to die. Like, so much running, And it was a blast. You just got to get in shape. That's all I'm saying. You just got to get in shape and it becomes easier. And I feel like the Lord's favor was, because it was his plan. So the Lord had favor. And I remember Dad, I was so adamant about not doing it. I'm like, and the enemy, I feel like Satan was like telling me all of these lies, like, you're terrible, you're going to hate it. This is, awful. Like all these lies were coming in my head, about it. And I remember, Dad, we went to the track one day and you were like, I feel so strong that you should do this. Like, I feel it so strong that you should do this. Y'all didn't make the decision for me, but whenever it was time to use the rod and be like, hey, I need to guide you in this area, you did. And so I accepted. But low-key in the back of my head, I was thinking, well, if I don't like it, I can just transfer somewhere else after the semester. But it was so crazy because the enemy is going to try everything to get you to not do God's plan, because I remember us going to the school. We had BAM, we toured, and then I started school. There were so many people that he put in my like direction, and that used to be on the team that quit, and they would talk about why they quit. Like, remember this one girl on the track team, this is why she quit. There were 2 girls on the cross country team, this is why they quit. And it was like the enemy was like trying to get me to quit. But it's just, I don't know what kept me going to practice, but something just, it was so fun. Met my best friends there. And yeah, the Lord's favor, I mean, what that prophet spoke just like completely came to pass. And I remember for years, all throughout college, thinking, why the heck did you have me do this? Like, why the heck did you have me do college athletics? I don't like, what's the point in doing great, right? If it's all for God's glory, what's the point in succeeding in something? And finally, now in hindsight, I look back and it's like, well, it's a testimony. Like, it truly shows God's divine power. And there were so many people that's how I met my husband. There were so many people on our team who got saved. It was just so many things. My major that literally SAU created, it was a unique major that they created themselves. There are just so many things that, sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but that God allowed. And I couldn't drive very far, and I was only 40 minutes away from grandparents, which was perfect. There were so many things that God just allowed and set up, and I couldn't see at the time. I think it goes back to your verse, Mom. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. Yeah, that was it. But just y'all, that graduation story, I got to walk across graduation, not humiliating y'all or me. And they got to say like, she's going into college athletics. And I am sure for everyone, I am sure they thought, what the heck? Like, I have no doubt everyone was thinking like, this is so random. Like, it's actually interesting. This is the last thing I'm going to say, and then we can close. Holy Spirit tells you stuff. Like, I remember having a dream, and there were specific people in this dream who actually in my past I was really close to, but I was in college athletics and they had gossiped. Like, it was so crazy, because in this dream it was like things were being said. I could hear their voices. And I felt like it was from God. I don't know, just Holy Spirit tells you stuff. I feel like it's discernment and it's wisdom to know like who's an actual sheep in the body of Christ, who's for you, who's going to celebrate you, and then who's a wolf in sheep's clothing, who really behind your back is like being terrible. And but on Facebook or in person they have a smile and they just pretend like they're your best friend. So that was crazy too, to experience that. I'm sure people were like, maybe not, but low-key, I feel like nobody expected what happened, just with like y'all's story. And I never did like super great. I did good in high school, but not like, not like state champion or anything, right? Like, there were other people who were much better than I had been. So it was just funny. But parenting. So do y'all have any last thoughts?
Well, you didn't ask about advice.
Oh, did I skip that? Well, y'all kind of gave it, which is why I skipped it. Do you want to say something?
Well, yeah. And the big thing is, enjoy every moment. Don't grow them up too fast. Don't always wish for the next season. When they're newborns, don't say, I can't wait till they can roll over. And when they can roll over, don't say, I can't wait till they can walk or crawl and then walk. And then, I mean, because you only have how many summers?
18.
18. And if you haven't, parents, heard that song by Matthew West, you might want to listen to it because it is so true. You have 18 summers. So enjoy them because they're only ours. God only gives them to us for just a very short time. So anyway, anything to add?
Nope.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Car. I
Yeah.
feel like we're not worthy of all your praise.
Better than y'all think. At least from our perspective.
I don't know. You didn't have Maverick on here, so.
You can stop recording now.
Okay. Well, I gotta close out.
Oh.
Okay, see y'all on the next episode.